Hey, what's up, guys? John here. If you've been to Los Angeles lately, whether you've been in Venice Beach, Santa Monica, even the Palisades, up and down Sunset Boulevard, you've seen RVs, even Boyle Heights, Silver Lake Echo Park, West Lake, everywhere in between, USC and Inglewood, Long Beach and Huntington Beach. You've seen many, many RVs, thousands of them. You have to wonder, where do they come from? Well, there's actually landlords out there making millions and millions and millions of dollars off of this RV crisis. And there's so much more that goes behind this story. I think this is actually going to become a much, much bigger problem in the years to come. I would actually bet that it's probably going to increase by 10x. And the reason for it is the amount of money that can be made off of this crisis is absolutely unbelievable. And the chain of events economically is going to push this even further. So without further ado, please hit the like button. When you hit the like button, YouTube is going to share the content to educate more people. And if you want to fix your credit, we'd love to help you fix your credit so that you can put yourself in a really strong position to take advantage of what I believe is going to be one of the greatest wealth transfers of all time. You go to greatcreditfast.com. That's greatcreditfast.com and schedule a free consultation. So these RVs, guess how much they buy these RVs for? Investors, they buy these RVs for between $2,000 and $5,000. Between $2,000 and $5,000 for the entire RV. And they rent them out between $600 and $800 a month. Think about the numbers on that. Say you buy it for $5,000 at the upper echelon and you rent it for, call it $500 a month. Within 10 months, you're getting all of your money back in gross revenue. Sure, you'll have expenses. Sure, you'll have issues. But what other investment can you get where you're basically going to get your entire investment back in year one, right? And when we look at what's going on in the economy right now, you're seeing the job market get absolutely hit. You're seeing interest rates skyrocket. You're seeing record high inflation, this affordability crisis. And people are looking around their homes wondering, what can I sell? What can I sell to make ends meet? They're selling the second car. Maybe they're doing garage sales. Then they look at that RV and they're like, hey, this RV is sitting here. It's a money pit. On top of that, we have to pay for insurance. We can barely fill the tank. The gas tank, everything's too expensive. We're not going to go to Yosemite. We're not going to go to Grand Canyon or travel the country. Let's just sell it, right? And so who's buying an RV right now? Who's out there looking to buy RVs? Sure, maybe there's some people, maybe going to off-grid or something like that, sure. But there's a hell of a lot of people that are looking to sell these RVs. And when investors start getting hip as to how much money they can make, this is going to be, I think, even bigger than Airbnb was at its peak. I think what's going to happen, investors are going to run out there and pick up tons and tons and tons of these RVs and start bringing them into cities and renting them out using apps and stuff like that. Even Airbnb these RVs, it wouldn't surprise me. I think people are going to make an absolute fortune. I think neighborhoods are going to change because of it. And I think the city is going to try to crack down on it. Of course, they want to get their piece of it. And the reason for it, they've even talked about it in this article, which I'll leave in the show notes. The reason for it is, the city does what the city does. They extract money. They extract money from us. And so when I say us, people that live in the city. And so when they're looking at these RVs, they're looking at an unregulated housing niche that they have yet to tap into. They've yet to offer tenant protections. They've yet to tax it with income being generated from these RVs. All these different things, they're going to start cracking down as well. But one of the very interesting focuses here is investors before would invest mainly in multifamily housing, right? So let's say, for example, they're buying a 5-unit building for $1 million in, let's call it San Bernardino. $1 million, right? And each unit's renting for, call it $1,000 a month, right? So $5,000 a month is what this building would hypothetically generate, right? They would have to put $200,000 down, or well, technically more because it's commercial. They just put down basically $350,000 as a down payment to generate that revenue, right? And after expenses, they're barely making any money. If they were to put $100,000 into RVs, think about how much money they would make, right? I actually think what's going to happen is there's going to be a whole new different section of property management that's going to get built out saying, this is a higher risk for us to collect rent. It's more of a hassle for us to collect rent. We're going to charge a premium. We're going to charge 15% or 20% of gross rents to deal with this. And I would bet a lot of people would be willing to pay, because I know, for example, if I owned RVs, which I won't, to rent out, if I did, I would not want to go knock on those doors trying to collect that rent. That'd be the last thing I'd want to do. I'd want to pay a company to do it. So when you look at what's going on, you can see that everything is pointing into an affordability crisis, and that affordability crisis is going to have upward demand on low-income rents and low cost of living. Right? We're going to see situations like these RVs increase. We're going to see more demand on ramen noodles and stuff like that. Low-cost items are going to be important, but I think this situation is just very fascinating. So when you look at evicting a tenant, let's say in a multifamily building, you might have expenses between $200 and $500 an hour for an attorney. And at the end, it might cost you $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 to evict a tenant. Seriously, it's very expensive. And the tenant will get free legal representation, and that attorney that's appointed by the city will push to try to get that case in front of a jury. And if it goes in front of a jury, it's going to cost an absolute fortune. So a jury trial could take 4 days, 5 days, a week. And all the while, it might take 8 to 10 hours a day. You're paying $200 to $500 an hour throughout the entire time. And if you lose, you could potentially even be responsible for some of their attorney fees. You might have to issue a buyout. All these just massive expenses. But with these RVs, you don't have to do any of that, right? So people can buy them, and if they want to evict it, it's basically a victim. It's basically the tenant versus the landlord. It's completely, unregulated, right? We look at this, there's a lot of attractive things happening with this from the perspective of investors. And I can almost promise you, that's what we're going to start to see. We are going to start to see so many people run out there and scoop up these RVs. A lot of people are just simply going to be looking for ways in which they can generate income. I mean, if you could generate $600 to $800 a month, like you really think about this, $600 to $800 a month, and let's say, for example, your overall monthly expenses were $3,000 a month, or say $4,000 a month, right? You would basically need $30,000 in cash. If you could fully rent out these RVs nonstop, you'd need about $30,000, $35,000 in cash to be able to buy the RVs and live off of passive income from these RVs, right? That's absolutely nuts. Like where else can you get that type of return, $30,000, $35,000? You couldn't get it anywhere. Even if you wanted to buy a duplex in the middle of Ohio for $200,000. And this duplex, $200,000, 3.5% down FHA, maybe you're all in with closing costs $10K, maybe you're renting each unit out for $1,600. I mean, you do the math, you're barely making any money on that, right? Barely making any money. You did the same thing with these RVs, it's $1,800 a month. It's huge. $1,800 a month on a $20,000 investment. So what do I think is going to happen? Just that. RVs are going to start flooding cities, specifically Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City. These are the cities I believe it's going to continue to expand and expand and expand. I think we're going to see very high concentrations of people being formed in these cities at a magnitude which we've never seen before. If we simply just look, in addition to the zoning regulations that are being applied right now in downtown LA and other cities, even these office to residential conversions that they're pushing for. They're pushing for density. That's what they're pushing for. And investors are going to look for a way in which they can really get their piece of the pie. What do you think about this entire situation? Do you think that this is going to be something that is going to really grow? I mean, if you've been to Venice Beach, if you've been to Santa Monica or any of these areas, it is absolutely crazy how many RVs are there. It's absolutely crazy. These things didn't just pop up just randomly. People see the opportunity. They're like, hey, I could buy these for nothing, basically nothing, and I can go collect weekly rent. I can go collect monthly rent. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I believe that we're going to start to see a lot of people living that work at Starbucks, that live at, that want to live close to the to where they work. They don't want to pay for a car. They don't want to pay any expenses. They just get that RV and park it into the community where they work or where they live or where they want to spend time by the beach. And they start to go into these really, really, really nice communities with these multi-million-dollar mansions, and they just park on the street. Like, hey, I'm in the neighborhood now, right? What are you going to do? It's crazy. But I didn't realize how big of a business it was. I just looked at it before. I'm like, okay, homeless people living inside of an RV. Just basically what everyone else thinks. I never really thought of how big this industry actually is and where this is actually headed, specifically because of the economy. All this new inventory that's going to get pushed on the market, and investors are going to look at it and look for ways in which they can make money. And this looks like a very easy way for a lot of investors to make an absolute fortune. Think about that. Like if you were an Airbnb investor and you're like, oh, you can rent this RV directly next to the beach at Malibu Colony, where people are spending $20, $30 million for a home. Yeah, well, you can go right down the street from there. You could park right there, $300 a night, $220 a night. People would be like, hey, I would love to, because the daily rate on a lot of those Airbnbs at those mansions are $10,000 a night, $8,000 a night. You're gonna start seeing this flooding all up and down the coastline. It's going to be a really, really big industry. What do you think about it? Drop it below, hit the like button, subscribe here, and add me on Instagram for short form content I'm not going to post here if you want. And also, if you want to fix your credit, we'd love to help you at greatcreditfast.com. That's greatcreditfast.com, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.